Hello, dear students. In previous lecture of surface chemistry, we studied about colloidal properties, that they show colligative properties, always their value find out smaller, color at different observation point. Okay, different color are showing by the different source. Tyndall effect we studied, that scattering of light. Brownian movement, which is the reason for stability, that zigzag motion of the dispersed phase particle in dispersion medium. Now, some more properties we need to discuss about these colloidal. Okay, the one of them is charge on colloidal particle. This is an important property, quite. Charge on colloidal particles, particularly lyophobic salts we are discussing over here, or lyophobic colloids you can say. Okay, there always some charge is existing on the colloidal particle. It may be positive or negative as well, and that's on basis that what is the charge on the particle. They are divided into two parts, that positive charge salt and negative charge salt. For example, positively charged salt, if you go on, then hydrated metallic oxides show this nature, that their dispersed phase particle have positive charge around them, like Al2O3 XX2O salts. If you will prepare this, H2O is telling you hydrated. This is metallic oxide and hydrated metallic oxides. Like one more, if I am giving example, Fe2O3 XH2O. This is also a hydrated metallic oxide. These both are showing the nature of the positive charge, mean to say positive charge get acquired on dispersed phase particle. Some more general, like hemoglobin. Hemoglobin also in blood is a form of a positive charge salt. Now if you talk about negatively charged, what are the negatively charged? So metallic sulfide you go. Metallic sulfides, whatever kind of metallic sulfide, like silver sulfide, iron sulfide, these all metallic sulfide form what kind of negatively charged salts, particularly or colloid. General example in day-to-day life, like starch, protein, gel, these all are negatively charged. Particularly, I am again telling, we are discussing lyophobic only. Okay, in because lyophobic salts stability is dependent on charge on colloidal particle. Now we will discuss how these colloidal particle in dispersed phase particles acquire charge. So today we discuss them as that dispersed phase particle adsorb. We are very much familiar with the adsorption term. Adsorb preferential charge on them. Okay, so this preferential charge actually explain you that why lyophobic salts have charge on them. Suppose, let's talk about a simple example. Like if you mix silver nitrate into potassium iodide solutions. Okay, then silver iodide is acting as a dispersed phase particle and it adsorbs iodide ion on this one, and that's mean to say this mixture results in a negatively charged colloids. But if you do the reverse, mean to say if you mix potassium iodide, if you are mixing now potassium iodide into what? Silver nitrate. At this time, silver iodide dispersed phase particle absorbs silver particle from the dispersed medium and hence result in positively charged formation. The same is happened with the FeCl3 when you add FeCl3, okay, in water. Then it will form its oxides and it will adsorb a positive charge, Fe3 positive ions on this one, and results in positive charge. But if when you mix FeCl3 into a NaOH solution. Mean to say this time we have added some NaOH also in water. Okay, at that time this metallic oxides sol absorb OH negative ions and hence results in negatively charged. So it's all depend what kind of charge is preferred by the dispersed phase particle. I am again telling you, if you are mixing silver nitrate in potassium iodide, negatively charged sol. Potassium iodide in silver nitrate, positively charged. There is only slightly difference. In this condition, potassium iodide is in greater amount. In this condition, silver nitrate is present in the larger amount. So that's why these colloidal particles result in preparation of the lyophobic positively as well as negatively charged salts. Okay, or colloids you can say. Now, we very well know that suppose let's take example. We know that AgI when mix silver nitrate in potassium ion, a negatively charged salts get formed. I am showing AgI particle in this manner. This is AgI particle, or you can say dispersed phase particle. Now iodide ion get surrounded, get absorbed on its surface around this like. Okay, and hence the whole particle acquire negatively charged, it form a layer of negative charge around it. Now due to this, it will repel the other dispersed phase particle, and that proves the region of the stability of lyophobic salt. Now, due to this negative charge, positive ions also start migrating towards them and form a layer around it, okay, of potassium. Now, this particular layer, this is iodide ion layer, okay, negative layer. This is known as fixed layer because it is immobile, mean to say fixed layer. And the potassium charge layer, or which is neutralizing the charge, is actually diffused layer, known as diffused layer. They collectively also known as Helmholtz electric double layer. They are also known as this, in this manner, Helmholtz electric double layer. One is fixed layer, another is diffused layer. Okay, mean to say potassium layer is able to move around while iodine are fixed towards the dispersed phase particle. That's why it is fixed layer. Now due to this formation, this phenomena, we know that around dispersed phase particles there is a negatively charged as well as a positively charged layer existing. So there also existing a potential difference. So that result in a potential difference, and that potential is known as electrokinetic potential, or you can also call it zeta potential. Okay, or you can define it that the potential difference between fixed and diffused layer around a dispersed phase particle in a colloid is termed as your electrokinetic potential or zeta potential. Okay. Now this is that proves that all colloids, particularly lyophobic colloids, have charged as the main region. They have some charge on them, and that's the unique property of lyophobic salt, which are so helping it to retain its stability. Okay. Now we all know that they have charge, so they show another property. This is known as electrophoresis. Electrophoresis. What is electrophoresis? Mean to say, if you put a colloid between two platinum electrodes and pass electric current, okay, here is dispersed, your colloid, particularly here we are showing colloid. Okay, now if you pass the current, the colloidal particles start moving towards a positively charged electrodes. Whatever charge they have, if negative charge they have, they will move towards the positive electrodes, and hence This phenomena is termed as electrophoresis. Okay, if you want to stop that movement, mean to say you do not want the dispersed phase particles move towards the electrodes, then you can use an electrolyte. A electrolyte will be added which prevents the dispersed phase particle, but in that case dispersed medium particles will start moving. If you add electrolyte, then dispersed medium particles moves, while electrophoresis is dispersed phase particles movement. Okay, under electric influence, that is termed as electrophoresis. And if you added electrolyte, dispersed medium particle then start moving, dispersed phase particles remain as it is, dispersed medium particles start moving, and thus dispersed phase particles if are moving, that process is termed as electroosmosis. Okay, so this is the another property shown by the colloids. Now next property is coagulation, or you can also call it precipitation. Mean to say you are separating the dispersed phase particles and dispersed medium particles by adding some electrolyte. So you can say the removing or settling down of a dispersed phase particle in a colloid by adding suitable electrolyte. We will also discuss about this suitable electrolyte. Is termed as your coagulation or precipitation. Okay. Now how this coagulation or precipitation is carried out? There are many processes by which you can do this coagulation or precipitation. Like first one is electrophoresis. You know that they have charge. You just pass down the current and the dispersed phase particles start depositing at the opposite charge electrodes. So that's how you can separate them or coagulate them or form the precipitate. So electrophoresis is one of the methods. Second, mixing of oppositively charged salts. Mean to say one is your positively charged salt, you have another one is negatively charged salt. You simply mix them, they will neutralize each other, and hence the coagulation takes place. The precipitation occurs in that case also. Okay. Now the third method, which is important quite, that you can use an electrolyte of opposite charge. Okay. So they will get preferred opposite charge attracted towards the dispersed phase particles and hence neutralize them then, and they get settle down and form the precipitate. So this electrolyte particularly leads to the formation of coagulation. That's why it is known as coagulating agent. And how we will define the coagulating agent? It is defined by coagulating power. The amount of electrolyte in millimoles required for complete precipitation of 1 kilogram colloid. The amount of electrolyte in millimoles required for complete precipitation of 1 kilogram colloid in 2 hours is termed as coagulating value. And if a electrolyte have low coagulating value, mean to say it have more coagulating power. I am writing again, low coagulating value results in more coagulating power. Why? Because if some electrolyte needed in smaller amount, mean to say coagulating value is lower, and hence it's have more coagulating power. However, the coagulating power is given, also explained by Hardy-Schulze law. Hardy-Schulze law. What he is saying? Higher the charge. It's a case when you are using some electrolyte, have some preferred charge. Higher the charge on the ion, higher is its coagulating power. Because it will able to neutralize more. Like if you compare potassium positive, magnesium 2 positive and Fe3 positive, you know that these are the positive ions and hence help in coagulation of negatively charged salts. But if you use Fe3 positive, that will have more coagulating power because it have higher charge on it. It will able to neutralize more charge. That's why its coagulating value is, or coagulating power is quite high. Is it clear? So we can explain also on Hardy-Schulze law that how our coagulating agent is acting fast. Okay. Now next topic is about lyophilic. Can lyophilic salts also can be coagulated? First of all, we have to talk about their stability. We clearly understand that lyophobic salts are stable just because of they have charge on them. But the region of lyophobic salts is dualism, mean to say charge on them, mean to say particles have charge, and as well due to their solvation. Because their solvation is quite good. That's why lyophobic salts are more stable. If they have charge, if the stability is due to charge, but you can coagulate a lyophobic salt, whether positively or negative charge, by using some electrolyte easily. But what about solvation? That if solvation is quite higher, what do we mean by solution? Suppose this is a colloid in which this is dispersed phase particle and this is dispersed medium particle. Actually, dispersed medium particle is surrounded by dispersed phase particles and hence help it. Because the forces are attractive, that's why its stability is quite good in this case. Okay, so lyophilic salts is quite hard to coagulate particularly. Ultrafiltration methods can be used to separate them, dispersed phase and dispersed medium particle, and we can prepare the salt particularly again lyophilic one. Okay. Now you very well understand the meaning that lyophilic salts are quite stable nature due to their attractive nature, or you can say high solvation particularly. So that's why they can also act as protective colloid. There is a topic in your book that is known as protective colloids. Mean to say, we know that lyophobic colloids are unstable. So for stabling them, we add small amount of lyophilic. So it will help it to retain in stability. So that's why lyophilic colloid is acting as protective colloids. At that time its action become protective colloids. Okay, so that's the last topic of the protective colloids. Okay, in the colloids I am again explaining you what we did. Classification, 3 types of classification we studied. Preparation. Next topic is preparation. 3 methods. Purification as well. 3 methods we discussed. Properties of colloids. Lyophilic colloids, lyophilic stability we have to discuss. Lyophilic stability, we must know what is the reason for them. And last topic is protective colloids. Okay, so today is your homework. So our collide is ended today. We will start emulsion tomorrow. So you will read up to the topic we did and sort out 20. Today I am giving you 20 questions and answer short type in your rough note. Okay, thank you.